Good morning, everyone. My name is Arpan Banerjee. I'm a doctoral fellow at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi, and academic counselor here at Ignou. And I've been teaching you the paper, Social Policies and Administration. And the code of this paper is BPAE-144. So I welcome you all to today's learning session. So far in this paper, that is Social Policy and Administration, in this paper so far we have done the first unit, which was pertaining the first block. We have discussed the first unit of the first block, and it was pertaining to the concepts, characteristics, objectives, scope, functions, principles, and models of social policy and administration. These are the things that we have discussed. So in today's class, we are going to continue with the first block, which is social policy and administration and introduction. But we are going to discuss in today's class the second unit, that is pertaining to social policy and administration. We have discussed the first unit in the last class. In today's class, we will be discussing the second unit. So let us begin. So the second unit is called Social Policy and Administration. So far in the first unit, we have studied that social policy is about welfare, and it is concerned with matters which are related to social justice, as well as social balance and social peace, as well as social integration. So that is what we have discussed in the previous unit. In this unit, we will learn about the way the social policies have been administered, and with the establishment of modern nation states and the renewed commitment to cater to the underserved communities. So the communities which have been left behind, which have not been served the benefits of welfare, the underserved communities, the socially and educationally backward communities. So with the establishment of modern nation states and the renewed commitment to cater to the underserved communities, there was a growing need for social policy. And concurrently, there was a discussion about how to identify the needs of the underserved communities. So identify, if you want to fulfill those needs, then the first thing is that you have to identify those needs of those underserved communities. So in modern nation states, there are certain welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by both the central as well as the state governments. And there is a lot of emphasis on the performance of these schemes. And when we talk about social policy and administration, so there are certain mechanisms, laws, institutions, and bodies which are constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. So in order to uplift them, we need to first identify the needs of these underserved communities or these vulnerable communities. And the most important thing is empathy, tolerance, and compassion towards these vulnerable communities, towards these weaker sections of the societies. So how to identify the needs of the underserved communities and how to deliver services to them, that these two questions, they became very, very important. Hence, there was a need to institute separate ministries or departments to cater to administer the social welfare programs. And indeed, social policy and administration, it refers to the institutions that administer the welfare programs in an organized way. So when we talk about social policy and administration, we are basically referring to the institutions that administer the welfare programs in an organized way. And there is always a need that was, so a need arose to institute separate ministries and departments to administer the social welfare programs. So It includes leadership, management, decision making, and most importantly, institution building. So according to the famous scholar Hanlon, social administration is interrelated not only with the social sciences but also with the values, priorities, and resources of the larger social institutions. So in this unit, we will study the various government entities that are involved in administering the social policies of India. So when we talk about social policy and administration in Indian context, so with reference to social policy, the intention of the administration is twofold. So one is to enable the beneficiaries access the available resources, and second is to deliver psychological support to the beneficiaries. In addition, the administration should strive to function for making a positive impact on the target beneficiaries. So more than technicians and tacticians, social administrators, they need to be moral actors who can build a just society. So they need not be just technicians or tacticians. Rather, social administrators, they need to be moral actors who can build a just society. So in this regard, the role of social administrators in evolving and maintaining just institutions, it gathers significance in building a just society. So social policy may be well conceived by the policymakers, but in the absence of sound administration, it may lead to implementation failure. So the being well conceived is not the only necessity, is not the only necessary thing that should be there in a social policy. If there is an absence of sound administration, if those who have been entrusted with administering a certain social policy, if they are not administering it in a sound manner, then it will lead to implementation failure. So administration becomes very important. So, and also the role of social administrators is in evolving and maintaining just institutions. It gathers significance in building a just society. So therefore, factors that influence successful implementation of social policy, what are those factors? They are clarity in the roles and responsibilities of social administrators. So there should be no overlapping, there should be no confusion. The roles and responsibilities of the social administrators, they should be clearly demarcated. Also, clear guidelines also should be there for complying with the rules, and trained human resources as well as communication networks should be there, and the monitoring and evaluation system should also be up to that level. And needless to say, program monitoring and evaluation is a very important constituent of social administration, as its function is to regularly keep track of the progress of various development activities. And secondly, depending on the progress of the development program, the monitoring and evaluation determines to what extent the project outcome has been achieved. So thirdly, it tries to spell out a plan of action for rectifying the inadequacies based on the stakeholders and beneficiaries' views. So, in fact, social policy and administration, it needs to complement each other for meeting the intended outcomes of any development activity. So, social policy and administration, they need to complement each other for meeting the intended outcomes of any development activity. And when we talk about social administration, it tries to spell out a plan of action for rectifying the inadequacies based on the stakeholders and beneficiaries' views. So when we talk about social policy and administration, the most important thing for a social policy to be successful is that social policy and administration, they need to complement each other. They should not be contradictory to each other. So the policy that has been framed and the administrators who have been entrusted with implementing that specific particular policy, those administrators, they should believe in that policy. They should not be antagonistic to that policy. So that is why social policy and administration, they need to complement each other for meeting the intended outcomes of any development activity. So as we said, that only the conception of a good social policy is not enough. So if you've just conceived a good social policy and those who have been entrusted with implementing that, they are not competent enough, that is not going to work. Your social policy, in order for it to be successful, your social policy, it has to have able and sound administrators. Without that, any social policy, no matter how good it is not going to work. So if we talk about our country, that is India, when we talk about social justice and empowerment, social justice is a very important concept in our country. So if you see, there are several articles in the Constitution which talk about social justice, which talk about the upliftment, the educational empowerment, ensuring the representation of the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and the backward classes in the government services. So when we talk about Article 335 of the Constitution of India, it guarantees the claims of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes, and it guarantees their representation in the government services. And if we talk about Article 330 of the Constitution, it also reserves seats for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes in proportion to their population in the Parliament of India, that is the Lok Sabha. When we talk about Article 332 of the Constitution, Article 332 of the Constitution, it reserves seats for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes in proportion to their population in the state legislative assembly. And as I have always already discussed the Article 335, it talks about the rights of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes in the government offices, in the public services of the states. So it talks about reservation for the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes in the government services, in the public offices. Article 335 of the Constitution of India, it guarantees them representation. It gives recognition to their claims to the public offices and the government offices. And then if we talk about Article 338, it is pertaining to the National Commission for Scheduled Caste, or the National Scheduled Caste Commission, NCSC. So, and then so the task of that National Commission for Scheduled Caste is to take cognizance of any sort of discrimination taking place against the scheduled castes in India, and to take steps to stop such discrimination. And also they have certain quasi-judicial powers, that those people who are engaged in such activities, in committing certain atrocities against the scheduled caste, they can be punished also. They can be held accountable also by the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, whose task is to ensure the welfare of the scheduled caste community in India. Then we have the Article 338A, which is the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. The task of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes is to look after the welfare of the scheduled tribe communities in India, to ensure their representation in government institutions, in educational institutions, to ensure their socio-economic upliftment, and also to ensure that those persons who are engaged in atrocities again, who commit atrocities against the scheduled tribes, they are held accountable. So the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe also has certain quasi-judicial powers. So these are constitutional bodies. Then we have the National Commission for Backward Classes, which was constituted as part of the 102nd constitutional amendment. So the National Commission for Backward Classes, which is Article 338B, that has the responsibility to ensure the welfare of the socially and economically backward classes of the country, and to ensure their socio-economic and educational upliftment, and also has certain quasi-judicial powers with regard to punishing those who are engaged in atrocities against the backward classes. Then we have Article 339 of the Constitution, which talks about the President's power to form a commission after every 10 years to inquire into the status of the scheduled castes in the country, the socio-economic and educational status of the scheduled castes in the country. Then we have Article 340, which gives the President the right to constitute a commission to look into the welfare of the backward classes, socially and economically backward classes of the country. Then we have the Article 341, which talks about the rights of the scheduled castes. Then we have Article 342, which talks about the rights of the scheduled tribes. And also the President of India has been given the power to notify certain areas in certain states as areas falling under 5th schedule and 6th schedule. And the governor of that particular state has to give a report every year to the President regarding the condition of the SCs and STs in that state. In case of scheduled areas, regarding the condition of the STs. But generally also the governor of the state has to give a report to the President of India regarding the condition of the SCs and STs in that particular state. And the union government, the union executive, can direct a particular state to take certain steps for the welfare of the SCs and the STs. So these are the various provisions. Then in our constitution, we also have Article 46, which talks about welfare of the SCs and STs and representation of the SCs and STs in educational institutions and government offices. And that is a part of the directive principles, which asks the government to take measures to ensure the upliftment, socio-economic upliftment of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes in the country. And also, if you see in when we talk about equality of opportunity in Article 16, so Article 16 Clause 4, it deals with the concept of affirmative action or positive discrimination, wherein certain percentage of seats in the educational institutions and in the government offices, they are reserved for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and the backward classes to ensure their upliftment, socioeconomic upliftment and their fair representation. So these are some of the provisions that are there in the Constitution to ensure social justice. And there have been various cases also using which the government has ensured social justice. So and the judiciary has also stepped in on multiple occasions to ensure social justice. So if we talk about in India, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, it is the nodal ministry for the welfare of the target audience vis-a-vis the scheduled castes, the backward classes, the senior citizens, the victims of alcoholism, as well as the victims of substance abuse, the victims of beggary, as well as the transgender community who have been recognized as a third gender. Their rights have been given recognition by the judiciary after when it gave its judgment in the Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India case. So, and also the denotified tribes, the nomadic tribes, the semi-nomadic tribes, as well as the economically backward class. So the government of India also took steps to give representation to the economically weaker sections when it passed the 103rd Amendment to the Constitution in 2019. So 10% seats in government offices and educational institutions were then reserved for the economically weaker sections from amongst the general castes. So the prime role of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, the prime role of that Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is to empower the target audience, that is the scheduled caste, the backward classes, the senior citizens, the victims of alcoholism, the victims of substance abuse, the victims of beggary, the transgender community, the denotified tribes, nomadic tribes, the semi-nomadic tribes, as well as the economically backward classes. So the prime role of this ministry is to empower this target audience socially, educationally, and economically in order to build a just society. So the government entities which are involved in social policy and administration, let us discuss some of the government entities which are involved in social policy and administration. So if we talk about some of the government entities engaged in involved in social policy and administration, the first is the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So during the post-independence phase, the Ministry of Welfare was created, initially to cater to the development needs of the population. And during 1985-1986, the ministry was bifurcated. This Ministry of Welfare was bifurcated into Department of Welfare and Department of Women and Child Development. So in 1998, the Ministry of Welfare was renamed as the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And essentially, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, it is a nodal ministry to cater to the welfare needs of the target audience, such as the scheduled caste, the backward classes, the senior citizens, the victims of alcoholism, substance abuse, beggary, the transgender community, the denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes, as well as the economically backward classes. So basically, the purpose of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is to enable the target audience feel socially, economically, and educationally empowered. So if we talk about this ministry, as on the 22nd of 2022, this Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment is headed by a cabinet minister and is assisted by 3 ministers of state. So under this ministry, there are 2 departments, that are Department of Social Justice and Empowerment and the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. So each department is administered by a secretary along with additional secretary, joint secretary, deputy secretary, director and deputy director. So let us talk about the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment. So if we talk about the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment, so this department, the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment, it caters to the needs of nomadic and migratory tribes. So this department, it caters to the needs of nomadic and migratory tribes, as well as the scheduled castes, the socially and economically backward classes, the denotified tribes, the economically backward classes, and the also the senior citizens as well. So in this regard, the department, it implements certain sector specific schemes. This department, it implements certain sector specific schemes for the educational, economic, and social empowerment of the target audience, like scholarships, hostels, residential schools, skill training, concession loans, and subsidy for self-employment. So this Department of Social Justice and Empowerment, it also administers schemes related to care and support of senior citizens, as well as rehabilitation of manual scavengers, beggars and victims, as well as families of substance abuse. So the associated organizations under this department, they include commissions, national institutes, corporations, and foundations. Now let us first discuss the commissions. So the first is the National Commission for Scheduled Caste, which I have already given a brief about. So to protect and promote the social, economic, and educational as well as cultural interests of the scheduled caste, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes has been constituted. In fact, Article 338, it deals with the National Commission for Scheduled Castes. It comprises of a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and 2 members. So the National Commission for Scheduled Castes is committed to the implementation of acts like the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955. Additionally, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes, it seeks to ensure that the economic development schemes earmarked for scheduled caste population are implemented and they reach the intended beneficiaries. It also seeks to ensure that reservation rules have been followed at every level, including reservation in promotions as well, which has been guaranteed by by the 77th Constitutional Amendment. Also, there is the National Commission for Backward Classes, the NCBC, which was created by bifurcating the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe and Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe by trifurcating it. Basically, it was given constitutional recognition under the 102nd Constitutional Amendment in the year 2019. So the National Commission for Backward Classes was constituted by the Government of India according to the National Commission for Backward Classes Act 1993, and it is a statutory organization under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it seeks to empower the socio-economically backward classes. And till date, 7 commissions have been constituted. And one of the mandates of the National Commission for Backward Classes is to scrutinize the inclusion and exclusion of castes from the central list of the other backward classes, and accordingly advise the government. So, additionally, the National Commission for Scheduled Caste, it also so that we have discussed, and so the National Commission for Backward Classes, it is a quasi-judicial body, as it has been vested with the powers of a civil court. And the commission, it comprises of a chairperson, a vice chairperson, and 3 other members in the rank and pay scale of secretary to the Government of India. So there is also the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis. So the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis was established in the year 1993 in accordance to the provision of the National Commission for Safai Karmachari Act of 1993. And in the beginning, it was set up to 1997. Later, the validity of the Act was extended twice, up to 2002 and 2004 respectively, with the National Commission for Safai Karmachari ceased to have existed with effect from 2004. The tenure of the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis has been periodically extended as a non-statutory body through resolutions. So as on January 2022, the Union Cabinet has passed a resolution to extend the tenure of the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis for 3 years beyond 31st March 2022. And the commission, the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis, it comprises of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and 5 members. And one of the mandates of the commission is to study and evaluate the existing welfare programs which are there for Safai Karmacharis and take up cases of specific grievances. For perspective, manual scavenging is prohibited as per the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and the Rehabilitation Act of 2013. 13. So the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis has been assigned with the task of, so what are the tasks that have been assigned to the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis? The first task is monitoring the implementation of the National Commission for Safai Karmachari Act 1993. The second task is advising the center and state governments for the implementation of the National Commission for Safai Karmachari Act 1993, and also inquiring into the grievances regarding non-implementation of the National Commission for Safai Karmachari Act. So the sole aim of the National Commission for Safai Karmacharis is to eradicate the practice of manual scavenging and promote complete mechanization of cleaning the sewer or septic tanks. And as per the government survey, a total of 58,098 manual scavengers have been identified up to December 2021. And ultimately, the mandate is to identify and rehabilitate the manual scavengers with a dignified livelihood. There is also the National Commission for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes. So, with the purpose to prepare a statewide list of castes belonging to the denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic tribes, the Government of India, it constituted the National Commission for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes, the NCDNT, in February 2014. So this commission, the National Commission for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes, it submitted its report in 2018. And according to the report, a total of 1,262 communities have been identified as denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic communities in India. So some of the major recommendations that were made by this National Commission for Denotified Nomadic and Semi-Nomadic Tribes, what are some of the major recommendations that it made? Let us discuss. So the first was to set up a permanent commission at the center for denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic communities. The second was to set up a separate department or directorate at the state level for the denotified nomadic and semi-nomadic tribe communities. And the third was to conduct a caste-based census. There is also the National Institute of Social Defense. So this National Institute of Social Defense, it became an autonomous body since 2002 under the Societies Registration Act of 1860. So this National Institute of Social Defense, it is the nodal institute that specializes in human resource development training and research vis-a-vis substance abuse, prevention, geriatric care, beggary prevention, as well as transgender person care as well. So this National Institute for Social Defense, it intends to sensitize, orient and build human capacities at the state, regional, national and international levels. So the primary objective of the National Institute of Self-Defense is to evolve policies in social defense domain vis-a-vis preventive, rehabilitative and curative. So the National Institute of Social Defense website, it says these things, that the primary objective of the National Institute of Social Defense is to evolve policies in social defense domain vis-a-vis preventive, rehabilitative and curative. So the governing structure of the National Institute of Social Defense, it includes the director of the National Institute of Social Defense at the apex, followed by 4 deputy directors. Further, there are 2 councils, such as the General Council and the Executive Council. So the role of the General Council is to frame the broad policy parameters, and the role of the Executive Council is to monitor and direct the National Institute of Social Defense's activities and programs. So the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, it reconstitutes both the General Council and the Executive Council for a period of 2 years. So another objective, another target of this National Institute of Social Defense is to generate awareness among the communities for inclusion into mainstream development activities, and also to focus on development schemes related to their health, education, housing, traditional art and expertise, and also to sensitize the government officials, implementing authorities, and the local bodies to treat them alike and not to exclude them from any development programs. So now let us discuss some of the corporations. So there is the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation, the NSFDC. So the NSFDC was set up in 1989 by the government of India, and so it was set up by the government of India in 1989 under the name National Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Finance and Development Corporation, NSCSTFDC. So, as per Section 8 of the Company Not-for-Profit Act 2013, the NSFDC has been incorporated as a fully owned Government of India company. With the bifurcation of the NSC-STFDC into two separate corporations vis-a-vis SCs and STs, currently the NSFDC caters to the needs of the scheduled caste community. And one of the mandates of the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation is to finance, facilitate and mobilize funds for the socio-economic development of the scheduled caste with an annual family income of up to rupees 3 lakhs. It also provides for financial assistance for income generating schemes through state channelizing agencies that are nominated by respective state governments, administrations and other stakeholders like public sector banks, cooperative banks, regional rural banks, etc., with whom the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Corporation has signed memorandum of agreement for the same. So also then there is the National Backward Caste Finance and Development Corporation, or the NBCFDC. So the NBCFDC is a Government of India undertaking, and it functions under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Its primary objective is to play. So the primary objective of the NBC FDC is to play a pioneering role in the economic upliftment of the backward classes by providing financial assistance through state governments and banks. So the financial has been utilized by the beneficiaries for the skill development and self-employment ventures to the economically backward classes, the denotified tribes, the notified tribes, and the semi-notified tribes, as well as the semi-nomadic tribes, the senior citizens, the beggars, and the transgender community. So additionally, the National Backward Caste Finance and Development Corporation, it provides income generating activities in sectors like agriculture and allied activities, small businesses and traditional occupation, transport and service sector, etc. So the National Safai Karmachari Finance and Development Corporation, the NSKFDC. So then the NSKFDC is also a very important corporation. It is an apex corporation that was incorporated in 1997 under Section 25 of the Companies Act as a not-for-profit organization. And it was meant to uplift the socio-economic status of Safai Karmacharis or manual scavengers, and to end the curse or the scourge of manual scavenging once and for all. So the National Safai Karmacharis Finance and Development Corporation, it is a government-owned undertaking that comes under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. The primary commitment of the National Safai Karmachari Finance and Development Corporation is to eradicate manual scavenging and to provide alternative livelihood for the workers through financial assistance vis-a-vis loans and skill development, like technical and entrepreneurial skills. So the mission of the National Safai Karmachari Finance and Development Corporation is to enable the Safai Karmacharis and their families to lead a life of dignity, honor and pride and to include them into the mainstream society. So now we have discussed the commissions, the corporations, and the commissions. Now let us discuss the foundations. So the Dr. Ambedkar Foundation is the government of India. So the government of India had established the Dr. Ambedkar Foundation in 1992 as a registered society under the Societies Registration Act of 1860, and it comes under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So the foundation, it entails to manage, administer, and carry out the development initiatives based on the ideologies of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the governing body of this foundation, it has the chairperson, who is the Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment. Then there is the vice chairperson, and there are members, ex officio members, as well as member secretary, and 5 members. So currently, the Dr. Ambedkar Foundation, it implements 10 schemes relating to the development of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. And one of the schemes, they include the establishment of the Dr. Ambedkar Chair in universities and higher educational institutions. So the prime objective of the scheme is to undertake studies and research on Dr. Ambedkar's ideals. And other schemes, they include provision for scholarship for meritorious students, medical aid schemes, scheme for social integration through intercaste marriages, and national relief scheme for victims of atrocities, etc. Then there is the Babu Jagjeevan Ram National Foundation. So the government of India had established the Babu Jagjeevan Ram National Foundation in 2008 under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it has been registered under the Societies Registration Act of 1860. So the Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment is the president of the Babu Jagjeevan Ram National Foundation. So this Babu Jagjeevan Ram National Foundation, it intends to carry forward the ideals of the late Babu Jagjeevan Ram, his philosophy of life, also his mission and vision for creating a casteless and classless society. Besides, the foundation, it entails to eradicate caste-based prejudices and thereby empower the SCs and the underserved community. So the governing body, it includes the Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment as president, also followed by the vice president, as well as 4 ex officio members and 3 other members. Then also we have the Department of the Empowerment of PWD. So the Department of Empowerment of the Persons with Disabilities, it was established in 2012 under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So the primary purpose of the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities is to facilitate the empowerment and inclusion of persons with disabilities. It also acts as the nodal agency for all the development schemes connected to persons with disabilities. And according to the department, empowerment of persons with disabilities is an interdisciplinary process that includes various aspects such as prevention, early detection, intervention, education, health, vocational training, rehabilitation, and social integration of persons with disabilities. And the vision of the Department of Persons with Disabilities is to foster an inclusive society wherein equitable opportunities are provided for the holistic development of persons with disabilities. And in line with this vision, the department's mission is to create an enabling environment where persons with disabilities, they feel safe, independent, and productive. So the department is headed by a secretary and is assisted by 2 joint secretaries and a deputy director general. So the department, it comprises of 3 statutory bodies. So it comprises of 3 statutory bodies. What are these 3 statutory bodies? The Rehabilitation Council of India, the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, as well as the National Trust. And it also includes the Central Public Sector Enterprises vis-a-vis Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India and National Handicapped Finance and Development Corporation. Besides, it has 9 national institutes that work in the domain of disability rehabilitation. So this Department for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities has set up 9 national institutes in disability domain to cater to the specific types of disabilities. So primarily, these institutes, they have been developing the human resource capacities in the field of disability for conducting various courses, provisioning for rehabilitation and promoting research and development in this domain. So what are these 9 institutes? They are the National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, with visual disabilities. So the first is the National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Visual Disabilities. The second is the Ali Akbar Jung National Institute of Speech and Hearing Disabilities. The third is the National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disabilities. The fourth is the National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Multiple Disabilities. And the fifth is the Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay National Institute for Persons with Physical Disabilities. The sixth is the Swami Vivekananda National Institute for Rehabilitation, Training and Research. The seventh being the National Institute for Locomotor Disabilities. The eighth institution established by them is the Indian Sign Language Research and Training Center, and the ninth institute established by the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities is the National Institute of Mental Health and Rehabilitation, NIMHR. And also there is the National Trust as well. So the National Trust is a statutory body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it was set up under the National Trust for the Welfare of Persons with Autism, Cerebral Palsy, Mental Retardation and Multiple Disabilities Act 44 of 1999. So the National Trust, it intends to provide opportunities for building capacities of persons with disabilities and their families to fulfill their rights and responsibilities. So the National Trust, it seeks to ensure an inclusive environment by empowering persons with disabilities to lead an independent and dignified life. And in this regard, the National Trust, it offers support for registered organizations that stand for disability rights. So the National Trust, it provides various rehabilitation and empowerment schemes, such as early intervention and school readiness scheme, the day care, the respite care, that is home for orphans and persons with disabilities, the health insurance scheme, the caregiver training scheme, the educational support for persons with disabilities, as well as the aids and assistive devices, etc. So to illustrate, the National Trust, it envisages establishing a resource center in each city in India with a view to collect and provide data to the concerned stakeholders. So if we talk about the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities, the Office of the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disability, it was set up in line with erstwhile Persons with Disability Equal Opportunities Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act of 1995, and under Section 74 of the Right of PWD, or the Right of Persons with Disability 2016. So the function of the Chief Commissioner is to coordinate with state commissioners on whether funds allocated for persons with disabilities has been utilized or not. So all this welfare that is being done is in line with the Incheon principles, which are regarding welfare of the persons with disabilities, to which India is also a party. So secondly, it works to safeguard their rights and access to resources. It scrutinizes the complaints with reference to deprivation of rights for persons with disabilities, non-implementation of rules, regulations, guidelines, etc. And for this purpose, the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities has been entrusted with a few powers of a civil court, that is, certain quasi-judicial powers as well. Next up, there is the Rehabilitation Council of India as well. So the Rehabilitation Council of India was registered as a society in 1986 and it evolved into a statutory body in 1993. And one of the mandates of the Rehabilitation Council of India is to regulate and monitor services for persons with disabilities. Secondly, it has been entrusted with the authority to standardize the syllabus relating to rehabilitation psychology. And in this regard, the Rehabilitation Council of India, it maintains a central rehabilitation database also to registered qualified professionals and rehabilitation personnel in special education. Besides, it has been empowered to undertake punitive action also against unqualified personnel who engage in providing services to persons with disabilities. So the Rehabilitation Council of India is governed by General Council and Executive Committee. There is also the National Handicapped Finance and Development Corporation. So the National Handicapped Finance and Development Corporation has been established in 1997. It is a government-owned company that has been registered under Section 25 of the Companies Act 1956 as a not-for-profit company. The company is governed by board of directors who have been dominated by the Government of India. So the National Handicapped Finance and Development Corporation is the apex institution that has been entrusted the task of channelizing funds to persons with disabilities through the state channelizing agencies or the SCAs. So these state channelizing agencies, they are nominated by the state governments. And one of the development schemes of the National Handicapped Finance and Development Corporation is the Vishesh Microfinance Yojana, VMY, that intends to provide prompt and need-based microfinance to the persons with disabilities at a reasonable cost. There is also the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India. So the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, called the ALIMCO, is a central public sector unit that comes under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it was incorporated in 1972. So since 1976, the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, or ALIMCO, has been involved in manufacturing, supplying and distribution of assistive devices for the persons with disabilities. And it is one of the largest company in the world for manufacture of cost-effective devices for persons with disabilities. And according to the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India website, 42 lakh assistive devices have been distributed to persons with disabilities. It includes multiple categories of cost-effective and quality assistive vis-a-vis aids and appliance for orthopedically, visually, hearing and mentally impaired persons. And one of the mandates of the Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India is to promote, motivate and develop the supply, availability, usage at a reasonable cost without compromising on the quality. So let us now discuss certain case examples. The first would be the Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. So with drug addiction emerging as a daunting challenge, especially amongst the youth, the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment has come up with a vision to have a drug-free India. So, as one of the characteristics of the social policy is to bring about positive change in the society, the Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan was launched in August 15, 2020 to confront the issue of substance abuse and bring about a positive impact among the victims of drug abuse. So the Abhiyan or the movement has been implemented through well-structured system wherein at the apex the ministry monitors the progress through respective state coordinators of the project monitoring unit. So the ministry coordinates, implements and monitors various interventions such as drug prevention, assessment of the problem, treatment and rehabilitation, follow-up activities, public information, dissemination and public awareness generation. And secondly, state level Abhiyan committees have been constituted to monitor the activities of the selected vulnerable districts of the respective states. So it also provides support and guidance to the district level committees. Thirdly, the district level Nasha Mukt Abhiyan committees have been constituted to prepare the action plan in the districts. So it is chaired by the district collector with stakeholders from departments such as health, education, women and child, police, field agencies who have been made to implement Abhiyan activities in the district. Some of the functions of the Abhiyan committee at the district level, they include identifying volunteers in the community, spreading community awareness on the ill effects of drug abuse, formation of clubs in educational institutions, etc. So thus, from central to district level, field agencies to local youth volunteers, all stakeholders they need to collectively intervene for making the Abhiyan a successful activity. So in conclusion, if we say in this unit, we were able to understand the way social policies have been administered through various institute, corporations, etc. And it is well said that a social policy may be well conceived by the policymakers, but in the absence of sound administration, it may lead to failure of implementation. So social administrators, by way of effective organization and coordination, could be able to identify the needs of the underserved communities and deliver services in an efficient and effective way. So we have discussed the second unit today. The second unit, it consisted of, it was pertaining to social policy and administration. And in this second unit, we discussed certain commissions, certain corporations, as well as certain foundations for the welfare of the underserved communities, that is the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, the denotified, notified and semi-nomadic tribes, the persons with disabilities, the senior citizens, those suffering from substance abuse and alcohol abuse. So we discussed about certain commissions, institutions, certain statutory commissions and institutions which were founded, which have been founded, also corporations, foundations and commissions for the upliftment of these communities, that we have discussed in today's class. So we have discussed about the National Scheduled Caste Commission, the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, the National Commission for Backward Caste, and also the different finance and development commissions, the National Scheduled Caste Finance and Development Commission, the National Backward Classes Finance and Development Commission, the National Safai Karmachari Finance and Development Commission, as well as the National Handicap Finance and Development Commission. Paper, as well as the block 1 of this paper. So in the next class, we are going to discuss about the second block. So we have also discussed the very crucial role that is played by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. We have also discussed the National Institute of Social Defense as well. So in the as well as we have discussed certain important foundations like Dr. Ambedkar Foundation and Babu Jagjivan Ram Foundation. So we are done with unit 1. The next class we shall start with the second unit of the paper. So I thank you all for joining today's class. Namaste.